Good day everyone, today we'll be taking a look at the Maltese revolution options. This won't take long because there are only two revolutions and I don't really intend to cover either in detail. First off, we have the Barbary coast. Now the Barbary coast is unique because it gives all of your infantry a bonus against buildings and enemy civilians, and also any building that you destroy with this revolution ends up giving you a coin bounty in addition to your XP bounty. And the other side of that is that the base units of this revolution, the Barbary warrior, costs 100 food and 1 pop, and also your settlers only take up 1 pop and cost food. So after you revolt and you send your settlers card, you're going to immediately want to start working on food again, get those mills going, harvest those cattle, make sure you have plenty of food, so that way the food half of your economy will be taken care of. You can keep on building settlers, and you can make Barbary warriors. Barbary warriors are amazing, by the way, because they act just like Spanish rodoleros, which means they're surprisingly good against buildings as hand infantry, and they can take care of any cavalry or artillery that they're able to get on top of. The Barbary warrior synergizes excellently with the Maltese, because the Maltese don't have another highly mobile hand infantry. They do have the Sentinel, but those guys are more of slow-moving tanks. They take forever to reach targets, and will they completely obliterate anything they reach, like a Landsknecht from the Germans, massed ranged infantry can pretty much completely tear through those slow-moving units, which is one reason why you need units like your corsairs to charge in and chop them to pieces without falling victim to dragoons, and also your corsair marksmen are a good way to run in there and quickly take out any settlers that are darting back and forth, because your corsair marksmen, like your other infantry, will gain that bonus against settlers, and your corsair marksmen are able to move very, very fast after you send military drummers, once you send the advanced arsenal card, which you should send before revolting. But the point is that as Malta gain an excellent bonus through the bonus against enemy buildings and civilians that you get for all of your infantry, and on top of that you gain 2 units that work very well for your roster, because those 2 units are highly mobile. A lot of your units with Malta, minus your Order Hussar and Order Dragoon, of course, tend to be rather slow. And the problem with the Order Hussar and the Order Dragoon is that everyone and their mother is going to see them coming, so you're going to get hit by a bunch of skirmishers to wipe out your Order Dragoons if you ever actually build those. Few people actually do. And your Order Hussars are going to get completely shredded by anti-cavalry, because everybody knows that to beat Malta you have to beat their cavalry and then kill all of their artillery. The Barbary Corsairs help to give you a bit more tactical flexibility, and they'll make it easier for you to defend against opponents who have experience fighting Malta. It is true that you'll usually have at least 1 or 2 units from your tongs at the commandery. However, if you only have those 1 or 2 units, then someone's going to adapt. If all you send is your Cassadors, then eventually they'll get that 1 unit's number and learn how to counter it. The one disadvantage with the Barbary States Revolution is that you do lose your hospitals, with those instead turning into barracks that can train Maltese units, while also training your Barbary Corsairs and your Barbary warriors. So it does suck that you'll no longer have that passive healing ability from your hospitals. However, that won't matter as much if you're on the offensive. So I would say that the Barbary Revolution is an excellent revolution for any Maltese player who's decided that they're going to stay on the offense, whereas if you are going to play a defensive game, then I recommend that you hold off on the Barbary States Revolution so that you can keep the passive healing ability of your hospitals, and then go with the Barbary States Revolution when you decide to make that triumphant counterstroke and go on the offensive. It is true that the Barbary States Revolution is a very good option for water maps. However, the second revolution that we'll cover, it also has great potential for water maps. So I'd say which one you choose will actually be a toss-up between the two, whereas normally Barbary States would be the standout water choice. So when would you choose this revolution? I would say that this is your revolution for the brilliant counterattack, that if you're going to play defensive for half of the game and then suddenly switch to going on the offense, then this is the revolution for you. The reason why is because this revolution is great at tearing down buildings. And if you're going in a Malta Mir, then you're going to have to deal with a lot of enemy buildings. So this is interesting because it's a revolution for a civilization that by its very nature is great at destroying that civilization. So if you're going in a Malta Mir match, then I recommend you go with the Barbary States Revolution. Next up, we're going to have a look at the Hungarian Revolution. Now this is an interesting revolution because it has a lot more synergy with the Maltese. For example, you don't lose your hospitals when you go with this revolution. Instead, you get to keep your hospitals, so this is a good revolution if you expect that you'll still be on the defensive after you revolt. Instead of turning into Barbary Corsairs or normal revolutionaries, all of your citizens will turn into Grenzers. Normally, revolutionaries are a midpoint between a musketeer and skirmisher, That means they have more range than a musketeer, but less than a skirmisher. They have more health than a skirmisher, but less than a musketeer. They do bonus damage to enemy cavalry in melee, but they do also ranged bonus damage against enemy infantry from afar. So these guys were meant to counter everything except for maybe enemy artillery. To that end, these guys are more like skirmishers than musketeers, because vis-a-vis your normal revolutionary, you get more range but less health, so they're great at picking off units from afar, but not too good against cavalry. Oh, also be advised that if you go with the Barbary States Revolution or the Hungarian Revolution, then you'll lose access to your German Tong settler wagons. So if that's the only Tong that you sent, then now you won't have any unique weapons from your commandery. You'll just have your goon and hussar. Normally with the Maltese, you just train all of your units from your hospital. However, there is a card you can send that lets you train those same units from your outpost, which has great synergy with the Hungarians. And this synergy gets even better when you realize that you can train both your hoop throwers as well as your Hungarian grenadiers. The only real weakness is that your grenadiers can't get the grenade launchers card, so they can't fire grenades quite as far as, say, the Ottoman grenadiers through the Hungarian Revolution for them. Another thing worth noting is how well this revolution performs on water maps for Malta, because after you send that card before you revolt that lets you train Maltese units from the outposts, and then you revolt with this revolution that lets you build even more units from the outposts, you can turn any small island into a miniature fortress just by dropping down an outpost, which is extra useful for smaller islands that wouldn't normally be able to fit a hospital on them. Just be advised you might not be able to take full advantage of this when playing against the AI, because the AI has a habit of getting stuck on their home island, which takes a lot of the fun out of it. However, against online opponents, having your outpost that can act as a miniature barracks, well, that's simply a very fun experience that will help you out a lot. For my closing notes, I would like to say that this revolution has become even stronger due to an overhaul that's changed a lot of the units that you get with this revolution, such as your Hajik and your Krabat. With that in mind, it is absolutely critical that before you revolt, you send the card that reduces the population cost of outlaw units, because your Hajiks now cost 3 pop instead of 1, unless you send that card. And your Krabats also cost a lot of pop unless you send that card. So if you don't send that card, then your population is going to be crippled, but if you do send that card, then you're going to have a lot of very powerful outlaw units that can gain promotions due to the overhaul that we've seen for those units with this revolution. They're changed that the Panjors and your Hajiks now counter enemy light infantry instead of countering heavy infantry like they used to. Also, your Panjors can now stealth. So that's a neat thing, and be advised that your Krabats have gained a ranged attack, so they act less like reskinned Stradiots and a bit more like Hackapelts. So with that in mind, you're going to want to use your Hajiks and your Panjors to clear out enemy skirmisher swarms, and with the promotion system you have more of a reason to keep your units alive and heal them up if you can. Remember that a lot of your units are outlaws now and will benefit from saloon techs. That's a brief overview of the 2 revolutions available to you as Malta. If you're going to go with the Hungarian Revolution, I recommend that you have a deck that has the card that decreases outlaw population cost, as well as the card that lets you train units from your outposts. With the Barbary States Revolution, there's not so much of an emphasis on having certain cards. However, it is a revolution that doesn't do as well on defense and is more offensively minded, and it's also a revolution that's much better during Malta mirrors. Well, your choice of revolution is a very personal choice. I would recommend that if you're doing a Malta mirror, you go with the Barbary Coast, or if you think that for the rest of the map you'll be on offense, you go with the Barbary Coast, whereas if there are any other circumstances or you're on a naval map and you have the right cards for the Hungarian Revolution to work, I recommend that you at least give that revolution a try. Now go out there, have fun, and enjoy the really cool explosions that you get to see as Malta.